What's up, guys? Today we are going to be taking a look at the AVA remote control. So shout out to the guys at Dream Media. I did have to pick this up through them because if you are interested in picking up an AVA remote, you will have to go through an authorized dealer to pick it up through them to have them set it up for you. Let's take it out and see what we have included inside. Now, there is an optional piece called the brain, which is kind of like a hub. I do not have that. I have only the remote, so I'm hoping that this controls everything over IP from me. Ready to go. So it looks like if you are a dealer, then you would scan that and then set up the remote prior to sending it over to your client. So that is touchscreen, and then I guess the cool thing here is the little touch panel here. So here's the touch panel. It's got a raised kind of rotary dial here. So I believe this changes colors and all that. We'll check that out in a little bit. Included in the box, we have the charging stand. So there's the stand. It's got some pretty nice weight to it. And the remote would just drop on it like so and just sit on your tabletop like that. And then if you wanted to press the buttons while it's on the table, it looks like you can do that as well. We got the client cinema remote, QR code, included accessories, what's in the box, that's remote, stand, and then there should be a USB-C to USB-C cable, which is right there. So that looks like everything that's in the box. However, once you do pick up the remote control, if your dealer didn't lock you out of the remote control, you can add your own devices to it on your own. So you don't necessarily need their help to add additional devices. But anybody that is familiar with Android will already automatically know that this is an Android interface. You can swipe down the notification shade. This is exactly like a Google Pixel or just a standard Android. So if we go under settings, and just a couple of settings that you might want to change on your own. There is mirror vision, which will let you tune the device itself. So there are a few different picture modes. There's standard, there's vivid, and then there's user mode. Under user mode, you can adjust things like the contrast, saturation, picture brightness, sharpness, etc. Almost like a regular TV. So if you want to go back, just, swipe backwards. If you're an iPhone user, you know how to do that. So under screen timeout, you can change the interval between when last time you touched the screen and when the device turns off. So you can put it on never. Usually I keep it on 15 seconds, but for this video, I'm just going to keep it on 2 minutes. And there's also a setting here that says screen attention. So if you're looking at the screen, it won't shut off. However, I don't think that would pertain to this since there's no camera on the front of it. So let's back on out of this. Dark theme. So you can do dark theme or light theme. To save battery, I would definitely keep it on the dark theme. And then there's auto rotate screen and then lift to wake. So if you pick up the remote, it'll automatically come on by itself. And that is pretty much it for, I think, the relevant settings. And this is running. You can see this is Android version 13. All right, so let's go ahead, swipe on up. So this is just your regular home page for the remote control itself. So let's say I want to go ahead, tap on the upper hamburger menu there, click on settings, a few different settings here, general settings, we've got the clock widget. You can use the remote for only one single room, which would also hide the devices from other rooms. So since I'm only using this in the theater, I don't have anything else included on the remote control from other rooms. So I kept it as only this room only. So it keeps it more simple for my wife or anybody else that comes in here to use it. You can change the wallpaper. Under cinema remote, we've got a few different settings here. There is I think, just a little action button, which is located right on the side here. You can assign that button to do a couple of different things. You can turn active flow off. So once you start a flow, or better known as activities, if you're a Harmony user, by pressing that action button right there, you can just set that to turn everything off, to basically shut your flow off or shut your activity off. I like to keep it off because I have inadvertently pressed this several times and just shut everything off in the middle of watching a movie. So for me personally, I would just put that on do nothing. So once you set that up, click done, and then you're all set. If you want to long press it, you can assign that to Google Assistant, Josh AI, turn your room off, or turn everything off in the entire house. Or you can have it do nothing. I like to put it on Google Assistant so I can ask it questions or whatever, or open the Google Play Store or something. So I like to keep it long press for the Google Assistant. I'm an Android user, so that just feels normal to me. Under automation, we've got all your different devices here. For rooms, since I've only got one room, it's only going to show theater. You can add a different room if you want to, or several different rooms. Under flows, again, this is basically activities or separate macros. We'll look at that in a minute. Then regular AVA OS system settings. We've got different projects. You can configure AVA OS if you are a dealer, and then you can live test the IR. But you probably want to know how to set the remote up if you pick this up yourself, or if you want to add devices yourself. So let's go ahead and add a device. So for instance, let's say I want to add the JVC projector. So you would just type in JVC. Mind you, this is a pretty small keyboard. If you have big monstrous thumbs, you might find it a little difficult to touch the keys. So I've got a JVC NZ8. So by doing that, it'll populate. There you go. It says JVC NZ8. That's the first option there. Now there is IP control. So let's say you wanted to operate this with IP. Type in JVC NZ8. Also type in IP. And then as you can see, it'll say JVC Projector IP driver. So if you're going to control this with JVC IP, it'll give you some instructions here. Click on next, refresh the list, enter your IP address. So you would enter it there, and then you would click set IP address, and hopefully it'll work. So let's go back. Let me pop in JVC again. So JVC NZ8, there we go. I'm just going to select that. So it's going to ask you, do you want to assign this device to your room? Yes, it's going to go in my theater. Click on next. Then it'll prompt you to ensure the device is in line of sight to test the built-in IR. So now here you would press the power button, menu, or the back button. And then if it turns on, it works. If it doesn't, then you're going to have to choose something else. But I know it works, so I'm just going to go ahead and click done. So we're going to add more devices to this flow or this activity or this macro. Let's just type in the Trinov. And there we go, Trinov altitude 32. So we're going to add this to the theater. Click on next. This is going to want to test out the power toggle. I do have this configured through IP, so the Trinov does work over IP. However, if you're going to use this through IR, it's going to walk you through the power setup once again. So since there is no direct control on the Trinov, and I'm sure other AVRs and processors, there might just be a power toggle rather than a direct on-off power button. So it recommends you to do the auto power toggle. Click on next, and then you'll get a little message saying, should your audio device be off when it should be turned on, you can fix it by sending a power toggle command from the context menu, the little hamburger menu in the top corner. So if you're familiar with Harmony, they have the little fix button or whatever button that was. I forgot, it's been a few years. And then you can automatically just send a power command over to it. So you can do the same thing here. So same thing, we're going to test out the IR, make sure that the receiver or the processor turns on. Click whatever buttons you want to there, you can turn it on, and then it should power on, which I know it does. We're going to go ahead and click done. And then it's going to kick you back to the home page. Go into the menu, go to settings, and then go to flows. And then you can see here that I've got already added my projector. So click turn that on. So once you turn that on, you can see that it shows up there under projector. So I want to go back to flows, choose projector, and then you get a few different options here. You can rename or change your icon. So you can change it from projector to whatever you want. JVC 8, we'll call it. enter, and then you can see it changed to JVC8, and then you can choose whatever icon that you want there. So let's go back out. We can customize slides, edit the launch, edit power off settings, and then duplicate this flow. So let's go ahead, edit the launch. So right now, what we have going on here is if we press the flow, this will automatically turn on the projector. It'll wait 5 seconds. It'll go to the projector's volume. If the projector or your device had a volume setting, it would just use that device's volume. And then it will show the projector slide or the projector's control screen. So since this is only controlling the projector itself, I want to add a step. So I want to send a command. You can either send a command, add a delay, launch an app, add a webhook, or play content. So for here, I want to add another device or a command. I want to choose the altitude. I want to power on the altitude. Click add. And then here it goes. You got your projector power on. It'll wait 5 seconds. Use the projector's volume, which I don't want. So I want to delete that step. And then I'll go to projector slides, and then it'll power on the altitude. So let's say that's all complete. So now what we're going to do is, let's click on JVC8. Right now it's starting the altitude, it's starting the projector, and then boom, this will kick you back into the projector's main page. So right now it'll give you some default settings, which is basically just your input settings, and that is it. So obviously, if you're just going to control your projector, you're going to want to add a custom UI. So from here, you're going to want to add the most frequently used controls that you want to use on the projector itself. So let's say click add a button or UI widget. So I'm going to go over to the projector. Let's say I want to add a control pad, menu back, a 3D on off button, back button, clear motion drive. Once you select everything that you want, click done, and then here we go. Now we have your navigation keys right here. We have your navigation keys right here, which also would be mirrored here as well. So you can still navigate through here, or you can have your on-screen navigation controls. Menu button is there, but then the menu button is also here. Back button is there, but then you also get your hard key button there as well. Then these are the other buttons that I just added: the 3D, back, clear motion control, lens control memory, and then another menu button. So as you can see, once you start a flow, it'll automatically kick you into that device's main home page that you decide. And then once you swipe up, it'll take you back to the home page, and these are all the devices in that flow. So right now I've only got the JVC8 and the altitude. So those are the devices that are in the flow, which you can go and control individually. So under JVC8, since I already added my own custom UI, I can go back, go into the altitude, and then you can see here that these are the default settings that I had already pre-programmed earlier. So for the altitude, I've got my different surround presets, and then I've got all the different options for the inputs, and then back to all my surround presets. So those are the options that I use the most when it comes to the altitude. So as far as setting up devices and flows and or activities, whatever you want to call it, this works essentially the same as what you would find on a Harmony remote control. And as you can see here, since I was on the altitude, this automatically kicks me into the volume controls for the altitude, which is your volume up, down, and then mute. And then if you remember, before I powered anything on, this dial was actually white. But now that everything is turned on, it has turned to blue. And basically, this really doesn't do too much that I've found. This just looks cool. It's a nice little visual flair. Now, this entire screen is a touchpad. Well, it's a tactile touchpad. So each corner has a control. The middle portions have a control. And then this here is also a directional keypad as well. And then the OK button, you would press down in the middle. So this is essentially just I believe an LED screen, or maybe it's an OLED panel under here. And just I think the glass here just has that raised shape to give it a, like I said, a little visual flair. As far as I can tell, this doesn't work as a rotary dial, at least not with any devices I have. So this just, I guess, just looks cool. And these are not touch sensitive. If you touch them, they will light up. However, if you want to like turn up the volume, you can't just touch it. So it's not capacitive. You actually have to press down on it. So you do get a little tactile feel to it. And you should be able to hear a click. So as far as a usability standpoint, I mean, this works very similar to what a Harmony would do. There are a couple of things that I would like to see possibly in a future firmware update. So normally how I would control my home theater is through the Roomy Remote app, which is a subscription-based app which you would download on iOS. So for this, one thing that I do kind of miss, so let's say I go into the altitude and I want to turn up my volume. So there is no two-way communication to tell you exactly what level the volume is at. So you don't actually know where you're at. If you're at a negative 17.5 or if you're at your own zero reference level, you don't actually know unless there is an OSD on-screen display on your projector screen or your TV. So that's one thing that I would like to see. I would like to see some two-way communication as far as that is concerned. Another thing I would also like is if I am in a specific mode, like say my native mode or my Dolby mode, I would like to see somewhere on this remote control that tells me what mode I'm in. So again, two-way communication would be cool. And also their library of devices isn't, I don't know, I haven't used Harmony in a few years, so I don't know if that Harmony library has been updated or not, but not every single device that I use is in this library yet. So for instance, if I go to Zidu 8000, it doesn't actually come up. So what you'll see is the 3000 and 5000. Luckily, those controls still work with the 8000, but that is not controllable. Also with the Zidu media player, I know that you can control it over IP. However, again, there is no IP controller for that device. Could it be updated? I'm sure it can be, but as of right now, not everything is controllable through IP. And one major thing that is kind of missing is Apple TV. So the Apple TV does show up here if you're going to control it through IR, which is totally fine. But, you know, as far as an IP driver is concerned, I was unable to get this to work with my Apple TV. So, I mean, you know, that's a major device, and you would think out of the gate they would have added the Apple TV, but that's not here. I'm not able to get that to work. Now, going back to the two-way communication, let's go to Kaleidoscape. And this is going to start the Kaleidoscape. It's going to start the JVC. It's going to start the turn of altitude. So the more devices you have, sometimes this whole startup sequence can take quite a bit. So I'm just going to let that ride out so you guys can see exactly how long this whole flow takes. So again, it's making sure that the Kaleidoscape is on. It's going to start the JVC, and then it's going to start the altitude, and then hopefully switch inputs to the altitude. And if you are a turn of altitude user, I'm sure you're aware that once you start the altitude up, there is, I don't know, maybe like a 30 to 60 second delay before it's totally powered on. So for those kind of AVRs or receivers, you're going to have to add a delay to make sure that the altitude is totally powered on before you can switch to a specific input. So for my use case scenario, even though I added the delay in, it doesn't always switch to the appropriate input until I press it again, and then it'll automatically switch to the appropriate input. Now, once I start up my Kaleidoscape, all of the controls aren't always available. So if I was going to play a movie and I just wanted to see the info screen, I can't bring up the info screen because here there is no button for the info. So we've just got your standard controls: fast skip, forward skip, rewind, whatever, skip tracks, play, pause, stop, which is basically mirrored here as well. And then if you go under custom UI, let's add a button from the Kaleidoscape, and here's all the available buttons, and there is no info button. So no info button there. So what you would have to do is open up your Kaleidoscape app, which you can download, by the way, since this is a full Android device, and then use the remote controls, inbuilt controls from there. And again, since this is an Android device, you can, like I said, download apps, like full apps. You can actually go to the Google Play Store and search anything that you want. So, for instance, let's go to YouTube. Let's go ahead and search YouTube. I've already downloaded it. So click on open. And then as you can see, since this is an Android device, this will actually run anything that Android can run, almost anything. There's some apps that don't work.
Check out the Blade Cinecube 600 projector. This projector was sent to me for review. If you want more information on the projector or want to pick one up, I will leave some links down below in this video's description. The projector comes in a...
Again, this is legitimately just an Android phone with AVA's OS on top of it. So, I mean, if somebody was slick enough, they could probably pull the APK off of this and put this on your Android phone, and it would probably work the same exact way. Or if AVA wanted to charge you for just their program, I could see you just using your Google Pixel or Samsung, downloading the AVA app, and most likely use it the same exact way, just controlling everything over IP. And as you can see, I'm calling myself from the remote control. So yeah, it actually does work. And since you can make phone calls, you can also text from this device as well. Now, one thing I should mention is if you have the remote control and the brain, if you have them both together, you can only use either the IR control on the brain or IR control on the remote. You can't have them both at the same time. So if your devices are in a room across the house, and then you have more devices in your main home theater room or just your main room, you can't control both through IR. So, I mean, keep that in mind. For my situation, since I am controlling the Sony projector, since I'm reviewing it, I have to use the IR from this remote control. And then for those devices that I cannot control through IP in my second room, in my equipment room, what I had to do is pick up an IR repeater system. So that way I could still use the IR control from the remote over to the IR repeater into my equipment room. So, I mean, at the time of this video, you can only use the IR on the brain and the remote separately. You can't use them together. From what I hear, they're going to update that at some point in time. So as of right now, you can't use them both together. So that could be kind of an annoyance for some folks. Of course, the little cheap IR repeater that I use is like $41. I picked it up off of Amazon, and so far it's working pretty well. But overall, I mean, if you are very familiar on how to use a Harmony, again, this works very much the same way. The only real negative thing is that if you are going to pick this up, you will have to get this through an authorized dealer, and they will have to set it up for you. I mean, there are some things in here, maybe some controls that possibly I'm not aware of that I would need to have professionally programmed into it. I haven't run across it yet, but I mean, there may be some certain scenarios where that could arise. Another thing to take note of is that as of right now, there is no built-in direct lighting controls, at least none that I'm aware of. So in order for me to have direct controls on my lighting, I did have to download the Philips Hue app. And then for my home theater, you know, I've got a few different presets like movie on, movie off, and then I can directly control the lights from here. So I mean, as far as working that into flows, if there is a way to do it, I'm not aware of how to do it. Otherwise, you're going to have to go and download the app directly for whatever device that is not supported within the AVA OS. And I know that's one thing that was built into the Harmony, if we're going to compare the two. So the Harmony did have control over Philips Hue lighting, and I believe different lighting as well. Whereas right now, since I guess AVA is so new, they haven't been able to integrate that just yet. I'm sure it'll probably come in the future, but you know, that's something to keep in mind. There are these little things that you just can't do just yet. But again, overall, I mean, this is a great piece of hardware. Again, you know, this is essentially an Android phone with a little directional keypad for remote control and an IR. Same basic controls as you would find on a phone. This is your voice assistant key, essentially. Volume control keys up and down. Then here, might be kind of hard to see, but this is the power button right there. So if you press on that, that would just shut off the remote by itself. And then, you know, you have the IR control on the top there, and then your charging pins on the bottom. And since there is no USB anywhere on this remote control, you can't plug this in, charge it, and use it at the same time. So if your battery is running low, you're gonna have to drop this on the charger to charge it and use it that way to control, because there is no other way to like tether this while using it and charging at the same time. Now I do like the charging base on it, but I would also maybe in a future iteration like to see some wireless charging, like have a Qi pad just to be able to charge it wirelessly by just laying it on the table. As far as me using it for the past couple of weeks, it's been pretty solid. Do I think it's gonna totally replace a Harmony? I don't think so just yet as far as a functionality standpoint, but I'm sure with a few more updates, it'll have just about as much control as a Harmony would have. Or if you just have a really knowledgeable installer slash integrator, maybe everything that I've mentioned is already here and I just don't know how to activate it. Now, if you do want to pick up this remote control, you can pick this up through our channel partner, Dream Media. They can sell you the remote, have it all set up for you, and have you all ready to go. But anyways, guys, that's just my quick little overview, quick thoughts on the AVA remote control. Nice little remote control, fantastic hardware. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.